You you had a face. You still do, but you had a face aching for sitting upon.
Are you not? What are you? Do you identify as either of these things, nerd or jock?
I identify as a theater kid, but
You have the
unfortunately, I grew up to look like a jock, so it's that very
yeah.
weird thing. It's as if in some sort of odd way of all of their various homophobic slurs were like stuck to my face, and then I've become them.
Mm.
Yes, so
Yes.
it would be sort of like if all of the various, I assume, like uh, aspire to be middle class or posh comedians in the UK, all the things they say behind your back, if you actually suddenly then became a super posh person that was able to do impressions because your mom could do impressions, as opposed to someone who learned how to do impressions and who just
I'd love to be better at impressions. I
yeah.
feel like the world has served me short by not giving me that. Although my mum works very hard at them, it's not a God-given gift. You have the God-given ability. I probably have quite a high impressions ceiling that I don't work at as well as I should.
You're the only man I know who's mastered a Slavoj Žižek, which is both. It's shocking that you were able to do that and create three lives. Like it feels like it should be one or t'other.
Yeah, the Slavoj Žižek one was. But the most impressive impressions are the ones that you can imagine somebody doing an impression of Slavoj Žižek. You can't imagine someone doing an impression of like whoever, like Joe Biden or just somebody who's a bit nothing.
But Joe Biden's so easy because all you have to do is basically just you weirdly like cube the every beginning of the sentence seems quite labored, and then you just say something horrifically folksy and reasonable. I'm gonna put jam on my toast. I'm gonna do that in the morning. Some people like peanut butter. I'm not one of those people. And that's Joe Biden right there. And also let me say this about Joe Biden. I love him.
Mm.
I want to fuck his mouth and I want him to fuck my mouth. I want us to take turns fucking each other, kissing each other. I want to oil him, he can oil me.
Right.
I love him. I love everything.
To what end though?
To give him pleasure because he's having a go of it. He is the president and he could use some relaxation.
I think that for a man who's been through so much, he might just want to hug you before any of that. I don't think he'd dive into that quickly. I think he'd more want to feel close to you for a little bit.
I mean, maybe. He's an Irish Catholic man and they're a real goer as a community. I'm going to say that right now.
Okay. And while I wistfully muse on that, tell me, it's the question that we need to start with, really.
Yes, we'll start with
the thing on everybody's mind. Your arm.
Yes, we can discuss what happened.
Start with your arm.
And then can we talk about you having COVID?
Yeah, that's been kicked into touch slightly by your Terminator arm. Well,
here's what happened. The long and the short of it is your friend of mine, John Hastings, this old duck, was bicycling to go film Instagram sketches at his manager's house to create some content.
Okay.
And evidently the gods felt we have enough sketches on Instagram.
Yeah.
Something must be done immediately about this.
Yeah.
I know I will give this man one of the, in retrospect, most terrifying moments of any human being's life. But in the moment, one of the most bizarre, surreal moments, which is I'm going down an inclined hill. I don't know if you know how bicycles work, but that you pick up speed going down to that. I believe I was listening to Red Fang. Could have been King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Either way, okay. I'm having a wonderful time.
Is it when you're going downhill, you want the front brake? You want to hold the back brake, not the front brake, because the front brake just makes you go splat forward. Is
That
this
is a
what
bit.
happened?
Oh no, Alfie! It is.
Okay.
It as a father with children that will be on bicycles, strap in for the moment where you get to not sleep for a bit.
Okay.
So I now have leveled off. I'm still making speed now in Los Angeles. You usually travel in the same lane as the bus. That's important, much
Could
like in
you
London.
could you give me the name of the street and then the nearest crossing of that street
I
by
have.
combining the key bit of the street and then not saying street but saying and the other street?
I was at the corner of Wilshire Boulevard
Nope.
and oh,
Wilshire and
Wilshire Boulevard and Adams Street, I believe.
so
Adams and
Wilshire
Wilshire.
and Adams.
Wilshire and Adams.
Okay.
At the bus station, and at the bus station, in this hand usually is a bike handle, and then that snapped off of the bike completely. And now I don't know if you know how science in fact works, but the
Mm.
entire steering mechanism of a bicycle is predicated on a balanced control of both sides, which I do not have. And I remember it in a very slow moment. Because it's on this side is still in, so the weight all shifted to that. I just fell on this shoulder and this elbow. And I remember it being very slow and controlled based on the quite alarmed black gentleman who ran into the street to help me get out of the road quickly because traffic was coming. It
So yes,
must.
LA famed for its motor cars, isn't it? And
It is quite known for its absolute kink.
yeah, it doesn't quite
Petrol.
have. It is to motor cars as Amsterdam is to bicycles, isn't it?
Yes, quite ironically, where I should have been doing this is Amsterdam, where
Yeah.
the moment where I stood up and the bus driver, who I could still see the bus lurching back in its quick brakeness and moving forward, and the sheer terror turn to relief of the bus driver that he didn't hit me in that moment. And, shock is a wonderful thing, because in that moment I was just like, oh, that bus driver was concerned for me. How nice of him. I then sat on the pavement and called mon manager's fiance, Jonathan, who is a producer. And the reason why you do that is he knows where the quick hospitals are, because I now need to go to an emergency room in COVID. Also, let's all be thankful for COVID, because guess what COVID made me get?
Health insurance.
Yes, health insurance.
Okay, so I've a few quick questions.
I thought you might.
Okay, so but then we'll call that chunk one of the story. I'll do my questions, and then you can fill me on the next part of the journey. Okay,
Lovely.
First question is, let's go in some detail into the pain and also the aesthetic of your arm in this moment, and also could you give me the angles that you fell when talking maybe about addressing the pain and when the pain first struck you, when you first remember it?
I was in total shock.
Okay.
That
That was you bashing your mic arm with the strap of the thing.
Very good. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Very good. So I smoked this shoulder and this, and I thought it was just dislocated. It just felt dislocated. I couldn't move it. And the elbow felt bumpy and filled with liquid, which I just thought was swelling.
Didn't you get hit by a car and have a shit elbow?
Guess who has the same injury on both elbows now?
Oh no. Ain't that a flat beer on a bad day?
It's a weird thing to have deja vu about a bone break, but on the opposite side of going, oh, I recall this feeling.
Sorry. I thought it was going to be Jesse telling me to be quiet, but it wasn't.
What was it?
Sorry. It was my bank telling me that I've just sent £6.99 to PlayStation.com. If you must know.
What game did we purchase? What game did you purchase while I was telling you the story of my near death?
I didn't purchase any game. It's my PlayStation Plus membership, which allows me to online game. Sorry about me.
You're doing a wonderful job, and everyone's appreciative of your presence and existence. In the moments after the accident, I felt nothing because I was clearly in shock, and I've hurt myself enough that I know what shock feels like. So I literally was sat there going like, "Oh, you're not going to feel anything for a bit because your entire body is just like, well, don't feel this because you'll pass out, and you can't pass out." Jonathan showed up. and I started to feel some pain and some frustration. Mostly what I felt was fear about American insurance because I'm like, what is the American healthcare system? Like, are they going to cut my fucking arm off? Like, what the fuck is this like? Like, I've heard nothing but bad things. Here's what I say. Obamacare, I want to kiss John McCain on his dead face because if it wasn't for that riddled old murderer, I mean, it's being very disrespectful to him, that riddled old murderer of Vietnamese people and also a true servant of the people, a wonderful
Yes.
man,
Yes.
I would be out so much money because for the paltry sum of $200 a month, I was marched into a nice, clean, lovely hospital and given many scans and many drugs and many surgeries.
$200 a month.
$200 a month.
Wow. That's quite a lot of money, isn't it?
It certainly is. Although, but if you then realize that Americans pay almost no money because of how their taxes are structured, that's how they justify it. But if you actually do the math, it's Americans still technically pay more, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, good old John McCain. That certainly made up for those bomb Iran jibes, hasn't it?
Yes, it certainly did make up for the fact that no one in the Middle East can look at a blue sky because of all the drones. But he did me. He did me. Finally, a white man helping out another white man. Eh, Alfie?
Yeah. I look kind of orange under this light, so I feel excused.
I mean, I feel like I can. There, I'm sepia toned as well. Ow!
Which was that? Was that your arm?
That's my ankle. So the pain.
What's wrong with your ankle?
I just kicked the table that I'm sat at while we're.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Making
it's hard to know which injuries are kind of cursory and which ones are sort of severe and of. Anyway,
so
go on.
The pain and injury was not that bad. They all just went, it must be dislocated and your elbow is a bit fucked. And then I would go, yes, I know, and show them my other elbow. And they're like, okay, so you know that'll probably be surgery. That'll be not. I got to the hospital. There was almost no waiting. And at the hospital, the shock started to wear off and the pain got bad. Like it was just like, Jesus fucking Christ. What's wrong with my arm? Like this does, and they're like, it's just dislocated. It's just dislocated. I then got brought almost immediately back into the emergency room, because there was no one fucking there because it's COVID. It was me and a bunch of very upset junkies. Very, very upset. One of whom had one leg and was possibly in the best shape of any human being I've ever seen in my life, and also was a junkie. It was,
and they'd all paid their $200 a month.
He absolutely had. That's the thing I couldn't figure out. And he was definitely a junkie. Like he had a bunch of plastic bags in his room.
That's so weird.
What it is that hospitals in California can't refuse people. This is something that I found out, is that you just walk into any hospital, and even if you have no insurance, you're just like, fix me. My name would have been Alfie. My name would have been Alfie Brown, and I would have lived at 1 Cock Piss Lane. But yes,
I love that kind of comedy. It's very simple but effective.
It certainly is. When you say those sort of things, imagine actually doing it and the person's absolute confusion there's no way that's a real street, but they still mark it down. Like I get very into those sort of bits. I get very into.
Yeah, me too. Okay.
I also always, whenever someone's like an Englishman, an Irishman, and a Catholic walk in, I always imagine how annoying those three people would be, because who identifies themselves specifically as an Englishman, an Irishman, and then separate from them, a Catholic? That would just be the worst evening.
Yes, yeah, it would be. And the English would be a prot, wouldn't he? And,
yes,
the Irishman would be a Catholic. So then it's like a man of nondescript origin who agrees with the Irish bloke more than the English bloke.
Yes, of course.
Okay.
Even though we all know who's right on that divide.
I don't. I've never really. I've never pledged allegiance to either side.
Neither do I. I read a book about the Troubles, and your big takeaway is, oh well, you're all just a bunch of bastards, aren't you?
Yeah, nobody comes across particularly well.
This is a sidebar, and this is a weird pet theory I've started to develop, which is as soon as the English are involved in a conflict, there is going to be no actual good guy. Like your country in particular has a real flair for we're seemingly the good guys, but we're going to do some real fucked up shit to make it seem like we're not as good.
Well, we've written lots of stories, and all of the stories have English people in, and English people that we really, really like. And well,
Mm-hmm.
we can't be the baddies because think about Nicholas
Yeah.
Nickleby wasn't a baddie, was he? So I think that's so it's we're the goodies because that's what he was, and
Yeah.
I liked him.
And we have the Queen. The Queen. We have the Queen. England has the Queen. The Queen can't be a baddie. And then you read
That's
about.
what. Well, I don't know. I haven't watched The Crown either. My knowledge in this area is very, very limited. Well, okay, you've got painkillers.
I got painkillers, and then it goes from not dislocated to you've razor sliced the top of your humerus bone. You're at a risk for bone death. Which, before anyone takes it, that's going to be the name of my band.
Okay. Oh no! What would they say to you if it had already happened? I'm afraid you've bone died. Your
that
bone has died.
I made that actual question. They went, it doesn't happen that quickly. But this is they sort of, but they're basically implying they're like, no, you misunderstand. This is that conversation. We now need to make sure that doesn't happen because basically, I didn't know this, but there's living bones and dead bones.
Okay. The living
So
bone's connected to the dead bone.
Never. They very rarely are. That's usually the main issue.
Is this like how babies have thousands of bones and we only have about 5?
Yeah, it's basically that. Like your weest son is mostly just a bag of thousands of bone shards, and now I'm but 4 bones.
Yeah.
Basically, blood doesn't get to the bone. That means that then it is separate from, becomes very brittle. It rubs against the joint, chips apart, and continues to break. And so you'd either have to replace the whole bone with metal, which is a different set of problems, or just have surgery every 1 to 3 years to fix your arm and be in pain with no mobility. That's like the worst case scenario, which, because doctors are the worst, I was told that. And then that guy left for a bit so I could just think about that life. And then another man came in and said, here's the solution. You're having surgery on Friday. And then he looked at an x-ray and went, no, tomorrow. And so then I went home, had to think in a big cast, couldn't sleep for 3 days or lie down, which is a real fun time, was on really good painkillers, then went back and had, looking back, quite crazy surgery. When I saw the x-rays of what they put in my body, I was like, they should have been more honest with me.
I'm not sure I consented to all these things being in my body. Have you got like tubes and pipes and pins and whatnot?
I basically have a plate like this with a bunch of nails into the bone. So it's basically what it is that if there's a hairline crack like that, the body may not heal to that bone. That bone will die and will slowly kill the rest of the bone. If you put metal and jam it together, your bone will then grow to other bone because it doesn't like metal, and then that'll make it vascularized, as I understand, and give my whole bone blood. I'll have bloody, lovely bones. And what is really fun about this is all of it was caused by a simple sheer accident, and I just happened to move in a way that I didn't hit my head, spine, or legs while not wearing a helmet. And I'll tell you, if you put on some real slow country music and you're on oxycodone, you think about how close you came to death, and you cry a lot.
Yeah. Well, it's good for you to have some time contemplating your own mortality, because if you are one of the pig children who doesn't wear a helmet whilst cycling, then not only should you have to confront the very real idea that you might have perished, and all the people that love you, including me, would have been so sad about that, but also would have been quite angry at you for not wearing a fucking helmet.
And here's the problem with also having you in my life is I know that at the eventual memorial ceremony, you'd have 2 glasses of wine and you would have said it and you would have been right. And in that way of like, oh, it's very annoying when someone brings up the correct thing in the time.
But you have to allow yourself that anger. You have to. And I would have,
mean,
and I would have, and I would have,
allowed
and I would have
yourself
said
at it.
that to your loved ones.
This is why I was excited to tell you this story, because I knew it would make a lovely. Well, that's a very interesting. Yeah, no, I agree with you, and also it's given me a nice perspective in a year where I'm also having a divorce. I
Hmm.
had to I had to ban someone off a Twitch stream who was being a bit of a bag of shit, and I was wrestling with that decision because sometimes I just feel bad for people. And all of those sort of thoughts were kind of cured in a moment where I went, I almost died. I'm gonna stop letting people fucking make fucking have fucking pay have live rent free in my fucking head.
Yes, but also you could never have been both. You would have been a married dead guy or an alive divorced guy.
Do you think that? That's an
Well,
interesting.
you wouldn't. You would have died married, wouldn't you? It's not. You're not divorced yet.
Oh, that's true. I would have died, technically died a married man.
Yeah. So
I would have had to go to that portion of heaven that doesn't exist.
yeah. Your wife would have thought to herself, well, that's saved some paperwork, I
I
suppose.
mean,
We must see
I
these.
there was no disagreement in that I could have really saved her a little bit of admin if I had gone
Hmm.
straight into the pavement.
Yeah.
Um, but yes, no. Here's my thing, because you broke up with your beloved for a time. Did you
Hmm.
have any sort of medical incident in that moment where you had to have an interaction? Because it was a weird thing where I almost texted her right away, and I was like, oh no, we're divorced. I should wait a minute. She's not a text right away. I waited
Mm.
until I had all of the information so I
Yeah.
could
She's
give
not
her.
the
She was
emergency person in your passport anymore.
No, hilariously, my emergency person turned out to be British comedian Chris Martin, who excellent at it. Very, very well managed. Him and my manager's fiance really took care of me. And then JJ Whitehead came over afterwards, and he just complained about various admin in his life, and it was quite soothing when you're on opioids.
I always like to let somebody have a good talk at me when I'm.
Oh,
It just, especially if I'm upset about something, just like, I don't want to talk about me. I'm upset about my things. Could you just talk to me about your menial dog shit, please, so I can zone out and kind of half listen to you? I love it.
I I love it too. It's also one of those things where people go like, "Oh, doesn't it put things into perspective?" And I go, "Yes, it does." And the menial dog shit things far more important to me than the big thoughts of like, "Oh, I could be dead." But you know what is more important? What has happened to you? Yes, that person is rude. Very good.
Yeah, let's get back into the illusion. I've just been
Yes.
confronted by death, and I don't want to think about that very much.
No.
I'd much rather think about, oh, that producer actually said that he liked my stuff, but actually didn't like my stuff as much behind my back as he did to
Yeah.
my face. And now I'm harumphing in quite a big way about that. And you go, yeah, great. Death isn't real. Brilliant. I agree.
It's also I was suffering from a bit of the blues hot, like that blue soft depression, sad about a bunch of stuff, and now it has been replaced by a white hot fear of death, and that there's a lot more. There's no passiveness in the you could have died. It's just it flashes. You have a quiet cry by your sink, and then you have a nice sugary can of ginger ale, and fucking
Mm.
get back to being in lockdown, and that's good clean fun right there.
You must be mourning slightly the capacity you had to jump rope and exercise because you were in such a good moment with your health and your
I,
fitness.
I'm maintaining it by doing something that my neighbors truly will be talking about for the rest of their time, which is uh, starting
Boning.
now. I mean, there's, some of that might be taking place, but more importantly, what I'm doing in a far creepier way is for 90 minutes, starting tomorrow, every twice a day, I'm just walking around my apartment so that if I get overexerted because I'm still healing bones, I can just lay down, but I'm getting my steps in nonetheless.
I quite frequently, because when I watch Liverpool Football Club, which for our American listeners they're a soccer team based in the northwest of England.
How does it
I
feel for you to call them a soccer team? Are you one of those English people that think it's wrong, or are you just being a nice person of just translating because some countries use different words for things?
I couldn't give a shit. I think people who get worked up about that sort of thing, it's just there's too much. I mean, there's just not enough time to care about that, is there?
I completely agree, and I always feel like that's the moment when someone's like, "Ah, it's called football, not soccer." That's the moment to be like, "There's a fucking war on in Yemen, so how about you suck my dick? Like, shut up with your
Yeah.
fucking
I mean, to be
nonsense."
fair, there's a war. Yeah, but there's a war on in Yemen. Is like, should we do a podcast? Nah, there's a war on in Yemen. Like, there's a war on in Yemen. Is the especially when you see those child soldiers. Anyway, it's a comedy podcast.
Yeah. Were you thinking the same thing? They look so handsome with their guns and so cute because the guns are bigger than them. This is too far. How are you to lift that AK-47, Caleb?
So cute because the guns are bigger than them. Yeah, that's nice. That's nice stuff. That's very good stuff, and it's perfect for a podcast.
What's also nice is, given the siege on the capital and all that's going on, it is a real potentiality that there will be American child soldiers in our lifetime, which, if anything, is a real full circle moment.
Full circle from
Their
killing
policies,
the indigenous children that were here in the first place.
correct.
That is
And
quite
then,
a good full circle, actually.
I mean, like, yeah, it's quite bleak, but at the same time,
what is it?
unctuous.
Howard Zinn puts in a people's history of the United States is that they would chop off the Arawak's hands and watch them bleed to death while they worked.
I mean, there was a bunch of those different things. Also, Redskins came from the amount of just native people you killed. That's what that came from, is you would count your red skins, which is why that football team needed to rename itself quite some time ago.
Yes, I've always thought that.
Like, it's why I think always Britain has, and we'll get back to Liverpool Football Club in 1 second, always dodged a bullet there by just calling it the name of the place plus United or Football Club.
Rovers,
because,
United, Rovers, Athletic. They are athletic, especially nowadays. The name's more appropriate than ever. I can't think of any.
Manchester is both a city and United, but at the same time divided in the way that it denotes there would be two different squadrons.
Yes, but there's sort of Manchester City, which is the inner city, and then there's Manchester United, which is that, like, let's unite all of like Greater Manchester, the bits of Manchester around, like Stockport and whatnot.
Yeah.
Anyway, I can't remember what I was saying about Liverpool Football Club, but I'm sure it was.
I'm walking around for 90 minutes every day to keep my fitness.
Yes. When I'm watching them and I get particularly worked up, as I'm prone to do, I'll just I put my phone in my pocket and just sort of jump about whilst standing up, and then and work my way up to my 15,000 steps that way.
Have your children started to get behind Liverpool Football Club?
Yes. I told when we were gigging back in whenever it was, I was with excellent comedian Jacob Hawley, who's recently sired a youngling, and told him about this the quality of having a child be excited about watching the football team that you've inculcated him with a passion for, and her indeed now. And there really is no greater feeling.
You've also picked a good time to make them like Liverpool, in that you guys seem to be winning currently. So it's not like you've made them like a bunch of losers.
Yeah, that's true. But there's also the same. Like, I'm regretful that I haven't picked for them a team that is local that I can take them to, and the football can be an event and something that is enjoyed live, and the participatory experience of going to a football match as a family bonding event. It's much harder to achieve that with Liverpool. Not only because Liverpool's further away, but because it's impossible to get tickets because they're so darn good.
Yes, you are very good at winning. You're very good at putting the score gentleman in the score area. It's very you've achieved point acquisition at the scored game.
Well, I could have put it better myself.
Oh, that's lovely, lovely meanness. And you also tackled grim death. You kissed Lady COVID on her vaginal lips, and she squirted disease into you.
Well, that's true. And it was around Christmas time when my entire family got the COVID-19 thing that's going around, the coronavirus, and including my baby.
Do you like that it has two names? I like that it has two names because that allows me still in this situation to know who's a douche. Because I know there's someone out there correcting. Actually, it's Corona. No, it's either
What?
one.
Who's correcting what? And what's?
I don't.
There's
I
no
don't know
correction. There's
who.
no right one, is there?
No, there isn't. But I know there's someone out there who thinks there is, and that makes me pleased.
Is it like? So, what are all the mutations called the same thing? Are they all COVID-19 mutations of COVID-19? But only
Yeah.
our one is called coronavirus, and all the other
No,
ones
no,
are called like
they're all
Billy
COVID
Bollocks.
19. They're all COVID 19 or coronavirus, and then they're doing it by where it came from. So there's the UK mutation, the Italy mutation. There's a California mutation. I think there's a South African mutation.
Yeah.
Aren't you lucky the UK got its own mutation? Look, and they thought Brexit was going to kill British ingenuity, not me. I knew you'd rise to the occasion.
Well, as a somebody who hosted this mutation in my body for quite some time,
Mm.
I can tell you that it's actually not very good fun.
Oh, you know
No,
what? You know what? They made it seem like it was some fun.
no. Well, that was wrong of them. Because what actually happens, I actually didn't get that ill, which was the confusing thing. I just got absolutely exhausted, interminably tired, and sat in bed watching you on Twitch have fairly nice conversations with a selection of other comics.
You once, yes, because that was the Georgia runoff election. I just remember we were texting around that time when you first got it, and you just said, "I don't think I'm very well. I think I just spoke to my mom, and I think she found me boring." And I was like, "Oh, this poor prick. What the fuck does that mean?"
I remember that. I think I bored my mum. Like, how boring do you have to be to bore your own mother?
I don't think you bored your mom. I think you were exhausted and thought you bored your mom.
Maybe I haven't asked her actually.
I mean, it would be if she gave you if she was bored by you and she told you the truth. That's crazy.
Is it good mothering or bad mothering?
I don't know. It's probably good mothering, but good mothering in that way that like you should tell a child when they're really bad at something, but in that way of like, but don't do that. Just don't do it. Just let them dream for a bit.
I think she'd probably say something like, "Well, I wasn't having fun, darling. You just sounded very tired."
Oh, I forgot. Yes,
Yes, you are being bored, but
yes. I also forgot that your parents must be English as well, and they have that beautiful ability to just say something absolutely wrecking, but you have no choice but to agree.
yeah.
I would have helped you out, but you just seemed like you enjoyed the struggle. I was like, that's something that was genuinely said to me when they said, "Oh, I drove by you when you were carrying a bunch of stuff. I was going to stop, but I just seemed like you were enjoying yourself." And I was just like, of course, what a wonderful country.
What a bizarre thing to do.
Yeah.
I mean, not. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't help you either, but then I wouldn't mention that I saw you.
This is the vexing thing. This is the beautiful tapestry of England. You have to let someone know that you could have been helped, but I did you the greatest service. I made you earn
Yes,
it.
it's very interesting hearing this sort of thing come from you because I'm always very skeptical about the idea of national traits because we all seem so different. And, you know, again, just talking about Liverpool, you go up to Liverpool and there's a completely different style of personality there in the same way that you go up to Scotland, albeit different country, but same kingdom, as it were.
Yeah.
You know, Cornish people have a very unique personality, to put it kindly. Yeah, I wouldn't have. I think when people talk about this trait that we have, it's posh English people or English people as we're portrayed in films with, you know, in Disney films.
Yes, I think that the main trait, and it's shared with the Americans, is there is an absolute embrace of exactly who you are. There is a intense, aggressive, can do, we are the best, even if it's not thought they're the best. The only difference is Americans are unduly impressed with how fucked up they can get things.
Okay.
While Brits are unduly ashamed of everything that they've ever done in this very odd way of they're disgusted with themselves, but also so impressed they're disgusted. Like only I could make myself so revolted.
Yes, perhaps. I mean, I feel like there's a trend in among stand-up comedians, which I don't know if he started, but in the same way that the Beatles didn't start rock and roll, but they
No,
sort of did in the kind of in the population's mind.
they made the
Um,
better rock. They made it. Rock and roll was a flash in the pan under Elvis. It was going away, and then the Beatles brought it back, and it's still kind of around.
yes. Okay. So for Louis C.K. to bring the brutality of honesty into stand up, and then that became this thing that was like it's been taken and never let go of, and now how awful you feel about yourself, and how this constant need to self excavate. And I think that's fine, and that's great, and that's a really good part of stand up. But people, I will never forget Uncle Mike Wilmot saying to a comedian who I was sitting beside, "Hey kid, tip for you. Write a joke. It's the hard part of comedy." And
I would like to know. I would like to know who you were sat beside.
I'm sure you
Quite
would.
desperate. Yes, I know. But we have a private comments area.
We do, but we also have the fact that this podcast will end and a WhatsApp connection to each other.
It's like I quite. By the way, my favorite part of all podcasting is finding out the secret person, because I've listened to so many podcasts be like, I want to know that fucking name, but being on the podcast and be able to get the name is luxurious.
Yeah.
Luxurious to find out it was your. Anyway, I was going to make a guess. No, I completely agree. What I think that is very interesting about what you're saying is there is also now, especially when you are in the topsy-turvy world of pumping out festival hours for Edinburgh or other such events, there is kind of this need, desperation to create the brutal truth out of everything that you do. And sometimes you realize, oh, I'm really doing 5 minutes about the bitterness of coffee because I just need 5 minutes, not that I actually give a fuck about how coffee tastes. And I think that now, because the entire world has been dealt with the brutal honesty of sitting in their own fucking homes for a year, and like people nearly died, all that sort of stuff, I think a lot of that is going to go away. And that only if you have actually something to say are people going to be like, yeah, let's hear your brutal truth. If not, they're going to be like, shut up, I don't give a fuck that you couldn't find pennies.
Yeah, or that you have some like, or that you, the fact that that Patrice O'Neill thing about, you ever thought about killing your girlfriend? How many times have you seen that bit done by a different comedian?
So many. I mean, I've seen everything Patrice O'Neill has done by a different comedian. Sometimes better, most times worse, sometimes word for word, in that way of, yeah, he was really good, but don't do him. I met him in real life. He's not someone to model yourself after because he was horrible to be around. He was not a fun human being. And no one that good and that honest is a funny. In the same way that I had one interaction with Louis C.K. that was not nearly as scarring as female contemporaries of mine have had, but it left me feeling, well, that guy's a good artist, but what a fucking cock.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I shook his hand once at Ronnie Scott's jazz club.
Excuse me? Pardon me? What? Everything I need to know everything about that story. Hey, why were you find yourself in such fascinating places with people that then later die or are met with personal tragedy?
When I started comedy, I made my only paid gigs when I first started. Obviously, you don't make any paid gigs when you start. Were comparing music shows, and I don't know why. I think people found out, like people, I knew the people that run the music nights, and they knew that I did comedy on the side, and went, oh, it'd be good to have a kind of MC who introduces all the bands onto the stage and back announces them and tells them there's a break and whatnot. So I did all that and did it with, some charisma. The job wasn't to be funny; it was just to be there. Anyway,
was this during your sleeveless shirt phase when I first met you and thought you were an absolute prat man?
Very much so, yeah. And I think the sleeveless shirt phase, skinny jean, kind of gingham shirt open down to the belly button.
Lovely.
with lots of silver jewelry and long hair and an absolutely gorgeous face.
Oh, you had a face. You still do, but you had a face aching for sitting upon. British comedy, and I caught the tail end of it, had a moment where people were truly trying to dress cool, and there were some decisions made that are crimes against vision.
Yes, but that's been the case also in Tom Segura wears a leather jacket and Prison's Chris D'Elia also looks cool.
I mean, I'll say this right now, and this sounds terrible. He would have gotten away with all of that if he had been nice to 5 people.
If it hadn't been for those pesky kids.
Here's the horrible thing about the crew of people he rolled with is like Brian Callen was just nice to people, and there was a lot of allegations around him, and he's literally just rolled with it. Chris D'Elia was mean to everyone, and no one has a kind word to say about him, and so people are like, well, these kids must be right. Other people, where it's clearly the evidence is as strong, are just like, yeah, buddy, wants to give me $5 to park his Jag, so I feel like he's a good guy. Like, it's the weirdest. It's the one quality of American comedians I actually kind of dislike, is that their unwavering loyalty, where I'm like, no, you shouldn't stand up for that guy.
Yes, there's a lot to unpick about that, because you're sort of happy that a man has got his comeuppance for not being nice to people. But then also lots of men being kind to people has let them get away with absolute fucking murder, which is the sort of history of humankind, isn't it?
It is. That's why I like the British way, where everyone just quietly. There's everyone. You're friends with about 8 people, and then the rest of them, everyone's just looking at each other, going, oh, "I can't wait until something comes out about you."
Yes, you have about 5 to 10 friends.
Yeah,
and even they get bitched about.
Of course.
And what do you think of what our close friend is doing? Not a lot, actually. And then everybody else is just beyond the pale. Awful, awful comedians. They're almost all comedians are appalling.
Yes,
and I still fucked. Even that one.
This one is also still fucked.
Oh, mate, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Okay. By the way, and I will say this: I have been an appalling comedian much more than I've been a good comedian. And the video evidence of that is scattered across the internet, as it should be with all of us.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's certainly the truth for me. I was, but that's also the other appalling thing about, without wanting to make this chat too comedy centric, but I think it's a point worth making, is that comedians aren't given the opportunity, and also don't give themselves the opportunity to be bad for long enough. So they become these.
I agree with the second part of what you said. I do not agree with the first part.
Well, I don't really actually remember how I ordered them, so.
I think that it's all down to the individually. People are not giving themselves a chance. It has nothing to do with pressures of outside forces and stuff like that. People are putting that onto themselves and saying that, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, maybe. I think getting ahead in these environments whereby there's a lot of onus on you to, I'm not saying that there is I think it's a kind of cultural attitude shift, and I think it has a lot to do with social media, because people put themselves on social media almost immediately and try and develop a social media following. People try and develop a social media following by putting clips of themselves up online. So people are trying to be like a standard form of good immediately, rather than being a fucked mess and just like, it sounds so indulgent and possibly pretentious, although it's not, to say that you need to really travel to some interesting areas before you find a way in which you can speak on stage that accurately represents who and what you are.
What I do like about creative things is that any opinion or this is what you need to do can be counteracted by another example. I don't think that there is a right or wrong way to do it. I think that what has happened right now, and again, going to your point to social media and also because of podcasts and stuff like that, and this is a general thing for all creative ideas, is that it's become a sense of there is a certain path or a way to do things and you do it X, Y, Z, and you're given something, when in the end, there is no right or wrong way to do something. There also isn't this notion that for some reason people have of like, you don't make it by a certain age, you're not going to make it. No, people don't make it by a certain age and then they give up. Other people just don't give up and keep going. That's the main thing. It's more just about staying positive, staying good at whatever you're doing. Also, a lot of people get really bad at everything that they're doing because they get sad, tired, distracted by other things.
Yeah.
They put on a baseball cap that makes them look very fetching.
Where's
Oh
this?
my.
Where's that?
I mean, that's closed now, but that is from the Amoeba Music. It's absolute. It is a crime against everything. Yeah, it's so fucking enraging because what am I supposed to do now when I'm in Hollywood and I need to kill an hour? That was the greatest place to walk around because you could be like, what do you mean? Because even just the things they would advertise of just being released. My personal favorite being, I walk in and on the billboard it said, "Yes, we have the new release of the Bee Gees' Greatest Hits Volume 2." And I'm just going, who's demanding the second like, I mean, I'm all for the Bee Gees, but you only need Volume 1 of those hits. No one's looking for the deep cuts of the Bee Gees.
I suppose it would have shut down because that is dead, isn't it? They should have
Yes.
just become a vinyl store.
They were just a vinyl store by this point, but they were so big, and it was so big. They had no foot traffic. They were barely holding on as it is, and now Hollywood is basically, and I love it, just so many tent cities because there's no eviction in California, and homeless people here are really smart and just went, well, we'll go to Hollywood where the boulevards are really, really wide, and we can build a bunch of shit because all those businesses are closed. So there'll be stuff that we can rip off of construction sites and build our homes out of. And they have done that, and now there's nothing you can do. Do you have any particular masturbation memories of like that was a sad one? Like that was a brutal, like that was a, you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Actually, I just remembered when it was. Yeah.
Mine that I always just find so bizarre is, and it's been a few. I have the thought a lot, but the acting on it is when you, for some reason, decide I need to leave the house in 5 minutes. I'm going to have a full masturbation right now for no, and then you either like are very late or you don't do the cleanup properly, and so you're just leaving bespeckled of underwear, like a real creep. That one I've always just been like, why would you do that?
I don't think I ever do that.
You also have children, so it'd be very weird if you said, okay, we need to leave in 5 minutes, and then you just went into your bedroom, closed the door, locked it, and put on, I assume, headphones.
Well, I think no, the worst time I was driving back from a show and I thought I was falling asleep at the wheel. And I thought to wake myself up, I might offer myself a little bit of road hand.
Was this when you had the Prius and were driving Uber?
No, I think this is back in ye old Yaris times, if you must know. And I basically, the comedian Stephen Grant used to have a bit about how to stay awake while you're driving, and he said it's to have half a wank. But so I remembered that, and I went, I wonder if that's true. I could stop myself from falling asleep if I have half a wank whilst I'm driving. But then I got halfway through, and I went, oh, I really want to finish now.
I mean, I can't believe I'm going to say Stephen Grant. It's noted Brighton comedian Stephen Grant literally inspired your cum. What portion of highway were you on, or did you stop at a motor services?
I think actually I was on my way. I was on my way back down from Darlington to Liverpool to go and stay with my grandmother. The funny thing is, I uh, I actually got stopped by the police about an hour afterwards, and I could sort of still feel damp. Um, and they went, you're going a bit fast back there. And I went, yes, sir. I'm sorry about that. And he went, where are you going? And I went, I'm just going to go and stay with my nana in Liverpool. I'm going to watch the football tomorrow. And he went, who are you supporting, Manchester or Liverpool? And I went, I'm a Liverpool fan. And he went, good lad, out you get, on your way, no more speeding.
I mean, only Liverpool is that
All the
dereliction of
while
duty.
with cum in my pants.
I was going to say, all the while with just ever crusting trousers.
Yeah. Yeah, but I didn't fall asleep at the wheel, and that's the main thing. And you know what? Ever since then, it's been a Red Bull and some sort of confectionery.
Hey, that's the much better thing. Is a lovely a nice 90% dark chocolate and a Red Bull. Wonderful stuff.
With the little chunks of orange in it. Yum, yum.
I go salt myself. Something I also did a while when I was working as a morning radio writer producer and had to stay up all night because I wanted to keep being a comedian. So I'd go to bed at 11 in the morning. By the way, if you want to lose your short-term memory, do that for 6 months.
Okay.
Is I would just full slap myself in a mirror, and the slap wouldn't do it, but the absolute fear of knowing what it felt like to slap yourself, you'd like kind of like
Yes, that's good.
Yeah.
I do also like to do what I call a bracer, which is just which only really works in the winter months, which is where you just take all the windows down and
Lovely.
scream.
Good. Yes, that's also good. I also like you put on a song. It only works if you have the volume control on the steering wheel. You put on a song at 0, and you just every 3 seconds just turn it up until it's at max volume. And that really scares the shit out of you, because if you're really tired, you forget you're doing it. And at a certain point, you go, this is getting rather loud at this point.
Yeah, that's good.
I recall when I hit a pig with a automobile. So in Northern California, there's, as it turns out, a bunch of wild pigs that escape farms, and pigs
You
are
could
the
have
only.
eaten that. That would have been vegan.
I mean, that would have been vegan.
Roadkill is vegan.
Is it really? Is this one of your weird ethical, philosophical stand on a weird thing and go, bah?
No, my brother showed me a YouTube video of a vegan eating a dead bird, like off the side of the road. It was so grim. But there are some vegans who would preach to you that roadkill is vegan.
How?
Sorry?
I thought it's no carcass. Or is it consent based?
It hasn't suffered. It hasn't been murdered. I think you're just not allowed to eat murdered animals. You're allowed to eat ones that have accidentally died.
Yeah, I mean, I've been vegan before. I'll probably go back to it at some point. I'm literally, my dinner today, I think, is just going to be minced meat I make in a pan. All I want is like the face of a cow that's recently been killed.
Yeah, I go through phases like that where I think I'd love to eat like just a butchery. I don't care what, but just butchery. And and then I always think, no, that's disgusting. I could never quite go through with it.
So I hit a pig with my car because they escape and run onto the highway.
Sorry,
and it absolutely totaled my car. And talking to the police after that was very odd, because it was two very rotund, obese California highway patrolmen who were in quite tight trousers. And I was so tired and amped up because I didn't realize there was any damage to my car. I just thought it was like a little something. I then opened it, like I went and looked, and the entire front, it looked like a cannonball had gone through the fucking car. And so it was just like I was so in my head, and then they went, so what did you hit? And I, for some reason, just whispered like, pig. I hit a pig. The guy told me I hit a pig. But it's a weird moment of saying that to a cops, and like I don't know how to say it so that they know that I'm not just saying it because they're pigs. But I just have like, if I say it, I was so tired. You know that thing where you get in your head like, oh, if I say it matter of factly, they're gonna think Oh, I didn't
I
actually hit a
meant to
pig.
hit the pig. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or you just constantly second guessing everything you say because you're talking to the police.
yeah.
How
It's
am I
like,
going to say this in a not guilty way?
but what's weird is I never felt guilty or weird talking to British police because they don't have guns. Like I'm just like, what the fuck? You're gonna hit me? Well, then I'll hit you.
Yeah, yeah, there's such a threat in the presence of a gun. I actually can't stand it. I hate seeing them.
Yeah, I don't go
Um,
for. Here's how are you faring in lockdown with your? And I'm gonna say it right now: murder of children.
my children. It's the schools being locked down presents its problems. My youngest child, who's about 3 months old, not sleeping, presents its problems.
That's very
Um,
rude of him, and I think he needs to learn some goddamn respect.
well, I've actually been feeding him the milk of a goat, and ever since I
Ooh,
started doing that, he's been much better. Um, when he had COVID-19, he was all in a great he was in a brilliant routine, and then suddenly COVID hit, and I could like his eyes went all swollen, and he was sniveling and had a temperature and whatnot, and had to go to hospital. And then the Daily Mail wrote about it.
that was so weird, by the way, because it never stops being weird. Because and this is what I think is I go, it's fun that I know this person, but I also go, why is this in a newspaper? There's wars.
It's so annoying. It's so annoying. And it's like, and then like to raise awareness, Jesse goes on Lorraine, which is a breakfast morning show presented by Lorraine Kelly,
Who is that? And I don't even know what channel that's on.
ITV, and then they use a photo of us all together from Instagram, and I've got to have my face on. I don't consent to my face being on Lorraine. Also, funnily enough, I have a routine, a stand-up routine about the birth of like the one night stand that I had with my common law wife of this
Yes.
day, and the birth up to and including the birth of our first child. And I recently did ITV2's stand-up sketch show, and this was the stand-up part that we made into a sketch. And my new baby, whose name is 10 with two N's, played my firstborn of 6 years previous. Isn't that a nice thing?
That is really nice. That both of you appeared on television without your consent.
Yes. He got a fee. He got £1.
Did he really?
Yeah.
What did you use that £1? I assume you're holding that £1 in escrow for him.
Well, I don't actually think I've got it yet. These things take a while, don't they? But I'm finding it exhausting, but lovely. I mean, in terms of FaceTime, have you ever heard that Malcolm? Is it Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hours thing? Who's that?
Of course, it's Malcolm Gladwell. Of course,
yeah,
I'm in my mid. That was shouted at me for 5 years of my life as the way to do anything. Oh,
yeah.
You want
the Beatles went to Germany for 6 months and played every day.
Yeah. And then they got addicted to barbiturates and one of them died. That's the other thing they don't tell you about the Beatles working that hard is one of them died. They didn't all come back.
But it was worth it. Not for that one.
I assume this is him toiling in hell. This is how much I think about the Beatles. I think about this is how famous the Beatles are. Pete Best is famous for not being in that band. He's famous
Thank you
for
very much for saying Pete Best to me as well.
Why?
Pete Best didn't die.
No, there's the other one that died, and then there's Pete Best, who just fucked up, like, who just was too handsome or was kind of a cock, and they were like, get out of here. But he's still famous enough that he makes money being Pete Best, and he didn't write fucking My Michelle. He didn't do fuck all, and he's still famous.
Well, that's just goes to show the weight and the gravitas of the gorgeous Beatles.
Yes.
Okay.
What were you saying before I interrupted?
Something to do with my children. But anyway, they're oh yes, the 10,000 hours thing. The Beatles went to Germany.
Yes. Yes.
Right. So in terms of, I think, like, as well as 10,000 hours to get good at something, all relationships have about like, all relationships will have a different amount of hours, but let's say the grand average of hours you can spend in somebody's company is 10,000.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
probably might reset after a certain amount of hours, but so it's till death do us part, or until we reach about 12,000 hours in each other's company. This is why some relationships last so long. My mother was very happy in her relationship, uh, because my stepfather would go abroad the whole time. They never saw each other, so it lasted
Wonderful.
fucking ages. I've seen so much of my family, like there's so many hours in their company that I'm just amazed that I love them still. Uh,
I am not, in that you have an absolute love for your family. You also are totally fine being honest with how it's going with having a family. And that's the key. Because I'm really seeing a lot of people just doing this in these times of, it's fine. It's fucking fine. I love them. And you're going, you're gonna fucking take a hammer to your wife's fingers. Like there is a gut level amount of people just need to kind of just acknowledge, like, yes, I am amazed how much I love these people, because they are being very disrespectful at times.